to talk a little bit about agriculture, open space. Yes, please. And for you speakers, if you have a quiet voice, there is a mic here. Megan, I don't have that problem. So. But because of what Davis represents with its ag tech community, we thought it important to understand agriculture and open space as part of this context. So I've asked Mary to come and speak, please.
Thank you, Rob. And I also don't have an issue with quiet voice. So, and I have a little bit different style of presentation here. It's going to be more conversational because I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I was asked to really talk about the biggest issues facing the farming and agricultural sector and or needs, right? You can look at that in two different ways. And in 5 to 10 minutes, talking about the ag sector is very difficult. So really what I wanted to do is to think about, first of all, it's very hard to generalize all of agriculture. I mean, you really have very different kinds of farming in this region, and certainly in the state, but we'll talk about this region. So you've got the small scale, locally serving agriculture. They have their own types of needs, right? You've got the medium size, which could be serving local and regional, but is probably also dipping into the national and international markets. And then you have the very large-scale agriculture here as well, that really is mostly national and global. Those have very, very different needs across the board. So when I'm being asked to speak to ag sector and what the needs and issues are, I'm going to try to generalize and do it in a little bit different way. I want to focus on, if I was channeling a farmer right now and I was being asked what are your biggest issues, a farmer would say regulation. Regulation, 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 right? And maybe weather, but regulation. So what I'm going to do is turn that around a little bit and say, what are the issues with regulation that are opportunities for Davis, okay? So there are, the regulatory areas fall into, several kind of major categories. Food safety. Food safety is a huge issue facing all of agriculture, whether you are small, middle, or large scale. Doesn't matter what your scale is, you will have huge issues not only trying to follow those new regulations that are coming forward, implementing those regulations, making changes at your company, looking at technology changes, looking at in the field and best practice changes. It is across the board no matter what size. Okay, so food safety is a huge one. Then of course there's all the water quality types of regulatory issues. If you didn't know this, you'll know it after tonight. So every single farm in California that is irrigated, okay, which is pretty much all of our farms except for obviously rangeland, does have water quality requirements. That started in early 2000s. That is modeled after TMDLs, total maximum daily loads, that is for large-scale processing and other kinds of facilities. They adapted it to agriculture, and as you can imagine, it is very difficult to monitor. It is very difficult to, if you're a farmer, track. You've got thousands of acres, and you're trying to track where potential issues are coming from on your farm, whether it's nutrients, whether it's pesticides, whether it's sediment. Okay, all of these are big, huge issues that farmers are dealing with on a daily basis. So water quality, huge. And many of us have heard of the groundwater problems that we're facing in California. The huge, and it's not as much of an issue here, it's a big issue further south in San Joaquin and certainly on the Central Coast. The kinds of nutrient loads that are showing up, the nitrogen levels, making our water literally undrinkable. These are challenges and opportunities, right, for a place like an innovation park here at the university in Davis, where we have the #1, obviously, agricultural college in the world. So and then there's water use, right? So water is for, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting, right? Famous Mark Twain saying, it's not getting any better, it's only getting worse. And agriculture is doing its part to try to reduce their water usage, but obviously agriculture uses a huge amount of water. There's no doubt about that. So how do we move in the future towards continuing those kinds of efficiencies and obviously grappling with all the issues that have to do with the environmental side, all of the ways that our waters are used, right, and all of the competing stakeholders in the process. So water use efficiency. We talked about water quality already. Air quality, right? So these are, again, I'm talking about the big regulatory issues that oftentimes different agencies within the state or the federal government are at odds with each other, and they have one regulation for this thing and another regulation for this thing, and they completely they actually cross each other out. So for example, pesticide use. So if we want people to use less pesticides, let's use herbicides as an example. So what does that mean? The only way you're going to use less pesticides, it means you're going to probably make more passes across your field with your tractor and your cultivator. What does that do? It causes more particulate matter into the air. Okay? PM10 levels are increasing, etc., etc. Where are our biggest problems with air quality? The San Joaquin Valley, down Fresno, Kern County. So these are continuing issues from a regulatory standpoint. Then there's issues from the standpoint of climate change. What kind of changes are we going to see with respect to how our crops are able to what they do with just different little bit of changes in temperature. We don't even know yet what kinds of reactions can happen and what it will do to our growing areas, especially here in California, #1 agricultural state in the country. It would be the 5th largest if it were a country in the whole world, right? So obviously a huge issue. What is climate change? What are the impacts potentially for us? And then there's things like from the food. I mean, the whole food side of it is a whole other area. And I'm particularly pleased to see, obviously, that UC Davis has created the World Food Center. And what that will be able to bring to bear to this region and to the state and to this world. I can't think of a better time to have an innovation park in Davis that could be partnering with World Food Center. I can't even imagine the kinds of opportunities that are available. But things like, for example, in this country, we waste 40% of our food. 40% from farm to table. So that's everything from at the farm level, how much of our crops are actually harvested, and that's because of a lot of different reasons that I won't get into, from the commercial side, from the retail side, from the grocery store side, from the restaurant side, and then on our own homes. These are huge issues that we will need to grapple with as we not just increase our population here in this country, but around the world. And so the kinds of, again, opportunities that an innovation park here could have are, in my opinion, boundless. And I want to point to a group or an interesting consortium, or however you want to call it, that Fresno State started probably now about 15 years ago. Fresno State partnered with the International Center for Water Technology, the California Water Institute, and the Center for Irrigation Technology to really create its own little innovation park all about water and water use. And that has been an incredibly important asset to California agriculture. The other thing I want to bring up is that farmers on a daily basis need to make good decisions about the use of their natural resources. And the only way they're going to do that is if they've got good information that's coming to them. The University of California Cooperative Extension used to be that primary source of their information. Marge, you probably know better, but cooperative extension has probably been cut. The field agents, right, the advisors that are out in the field doing the applied agricultural research, it's probably been cut 60% in the last 10 years. This is where our farmers got their day-to-day information about how to respond to things like these regulations that I'm referring to, how to improve their best practices on their farm, how to reduce our, inputs, all of these other things. And so what we're doing is reducing right now the information that the farmer, or at least the accessibility of this kind of information at the farm level. And in my opinion, an innovation park like this could start again to reinvigorate, right, that kind of information that we so desperately need when we are going into the kinds of issues that we're, climate that we're going into, no pun intended, in agriculture and food production across the globe. So I wanted to really just kind of, this is a very broad spectrum kind of look at agriculture, but I want to say too that whether you're small locally serving, medium size, or large scale production agriculture, all of those issues that I highlighted on the regulatory side, we're hitting whatever size of farm, they're all having to deal with this. And they all need good information, they all need good research, they all need, the kinds of solutions to move forward.